I'm Caprice Thorson, and I want to share with you an understanding that has completely transformed my life and radically transformed and improved the lives of my coaching clients. It's interesting because when you really understand and get in your bones what I'm going to share with you today, you're going to think, why didn't somebody tell me this in kindergarten? It would have made my life so much easier and so much better. So I'm glad that you found this website, and I'm going to do my best to explain this understanding, but it's not something that you get intellectually. I want you to listen very softly for kind of the feeling behind it, and I'm providing lots of other resources that will help you to, get some insights around this understanding. So I spent the first 30 years of my life like really living in my head. School does that to us. We're trained to just process information and live in our heads, and we're valued by our intellect. Really like whoever processes the most information wins. So because I'm a glutton for punishment, I got my MBA in finance from Carnegie Mellon, which is one of the most quantitative programs, in the country. And that just furthered my reliance on my intellect and my needing to appear really smart. And then I worked for 2 boutique strategy consulting firms, and it was all about like sheer horsepower, intellectual ability. And then in 2000, I started my own business strategy consultancy and got trained as a professional coach. And that helped me get out of my head a bit. We really looked at the mind-body connection. We looked at how you create your own stories and you're living in them. But what really has transformed my life and my work is what I discovered 2 years ago in the work of Sydney Banks. And I provide a lot of links to his videos because the way he explains it is so beautiful. But what happened for me is I had gone through an extremely traumatic divorce. And without going into details, because it's not just my story, it's my daughter's story, but I found out, that my husband was doing things no wife wants their husband to be doing. And then he made a series of choices that did not include the well-being of our daughters. So it left me reeling because the life I had built was all built on lies, was built on just something that wasn't real. And I got through the divorce, but then I got stuck. I really got stuck. And I did a course called the Living Recovery Program that was specifically for women in the aftermath of a relationship with a psychopath. Very specific. And it was helpful to educate me to understand, that I'd been targeted, that psychological abuse, gaslighting, all of it. But it also left me terrified because it used some really scary labels for my ex-husband's behavior. And psychology only took me and my daughters so far because psychology explains what you're going through by looking at your past. And it wasn't helpful, not for me. So what was helpful was realizing that I live 100% in the experience of my thinking. And it's not circumstances that create the thinking, feelings, sensations that I have. It's how I think. And this is true for every human being. These are fundamental principles that are operating in the background of your life, whether or not you know they exist. I liken them to gravity and to mathematics. They're working. 2 + 2 is 4, even if you don't like the answer. So what this has done for me is, as I go through my life today, I have ups and downs. My mood will go up and my mood will go down because I'm human. And I use now my feelings as my internal GPS. So when my mood dips, or when I feel angry or stressed or fearful, because we're living in really uncertain times, rather than analyze my thinking, which is what I would have done before. I would have been like, oh, why am I feeling this way? What's going on? What do I need to do? Instead of analyzing it, I pause and I go, I'm thinking some pretty crappy thoughts right now. I can feel them. So a great metaphor that I love is think of yourself as an automatic bubble machine. If you've seen them at fairs or kids' birthday parties, so it's a machine and it's just constantly pushing out bubbles, bubble after bubble. Those bubbles are your thoughts because your brain is going to think the way that your heart beats and your lungs breathe, bubble after bubble after bubble, thought bubbles. But what is so beautiful about this understanding is all of those little bubbles are totally insubstantial. You poke them and they burst. So your only job as you go through life is to pay attention to your feelings, because you will feel them, or your body sensations. For me, it's a feeling of either heaviness or lightness. And so when I'm feeling light, when I'm feeling happy, joyful, peaceful, that's an indication that my thinking is on the right track. When I feel heavy, when I have a headache, when something's bothering me, when I'm scared, when I'm tight, when I'm angry, it just means that those thought bubbles they're big and they're ugly and they're heavy and they're blocking clear thinking. So your job is not to try and produce really pretty positive bubbles, because that would be a full-time job. Your only job is to know that you are the thinker. You're not your thoughts. You're the bubble maker. You're not the bubbles. And give yourself a little space, because once you realize that you are the thinker, you are the space of impersonal awareness in which these thoughts and these feelings and these body sensations arise. So your job becomes a lot easier. You're not controlling your thinking. You're not analyzing your thinking. You're just noticing it and letting those bubbles burst or just blow on by. So that is my introduction to this understanding, and I hope that it at least gets you curious and gives you hope, because never lose hope. There is always hope, and you are unbreakable.